Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm sitting down with yet another candidate for the District 8 Republican Senate race. Mr. Bryan Logan is here with me today. How are you doing, Bryan?
Doing good.
All right, that sounds good. So, with the election coming up and all that, what made you want to run?
Probably just what made me want to run was to serve on a broader, scale, on a bigger platform. So, as you've seen probably in my bio, I sit on several boards and pastored for 15 years, and this just gives us a chance to serve in a broader spectrum.
You have a pretty good resume. You're a pastor.
Correct.
Married. Father and grandfather?
Sure.
Really? You're a young man.
You see these gray hairs coming in here.
Oh, well, have you seen mine?
They wasn't here until the Senate race and grandfatherhood.
Right, yeah. All right. Can you do a little bit, because we're trying, I'm trying with the audience to get to know you a little bit. Share a little bit about your background as pastor and how that has influenced your decision to go. I mean, you kind of answered some of it. But.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we could start born and raised over in Payton, Oklahoma, Okfuskee County, been there my whole life. That's where my grandchildren are now 8th generation there in the same area. Born and raised there, went to Payton Public Schools. My wife went to Payton Public Schools, and been there ever since. And so got in the ministry 2003 and took my first church 2009, been there ever since, and worked bivocational the whole time. And absolutely, so I know we're talking about pastoring right now, so I'll say this. When asked about experience to serve as far as the Senate goes, my pastoral duties really is probably where most of my experience, not my resume, so to speak, of all the work that I've done outside of that, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but my pastoral duties, as far as committing to serve others, is probably the biggest demonstration that I have as far as dedication to serving people. And I've told people this all across District 8, whether you're serving in the capacity of law enforcement, education, you got to be a servant. You got to have a heart and compassion for others, and if you don't, it's probably not the right fit. So 15 years of pastoring is a lot of work.
Yeah, it does say a little bit about it. I've had a lot of friends. Had a lot of friends that are ministers, pastors, and in different situation, especially home in Sweden. And I've seen a little bit of their dedication to what they're doing, so I understand that means a lot. All right, so another thing you mentioned also we talked about is the fact that you are a business owner, agriculture producer. The question is, what unique perspectives do you feel that you can bring to the table when it comes to that? As far as being a small business owner, we've got to protect. We see how hard it is in today's times to stay afloat in the small business industry. Seems like all your big corporations catch breaks, whether that's from credit card companies or anybody else, and so it's really kind of hard to navigate as a small business owner at times. And so having a couple of businesses, bringing that to the table as far as the getting started, trying to keep those in operation, especially if you follow any of the cattle market today. Right now it's high and everybody's glad of that, but the years when it's down and everything else is up, and you got to stay in, especially during the years of drought. We've came through that over the last few years, and so there's something to be said about persistence and dedication to sticking with a small business and trying to push it through the hard times and keep it going. And so absolutely, especially District 8, it's so rural that somebody for a voice for not just small business but business in general needs to be there for the people. Yeah, me being an outsider, I feel like I'm looking at District 8 as
a farmer's country or
Yeah.
cattle farmers that raise cattle and horses and beef meat and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So I understand that is probably something that needs to be propped up over time.
Yeah, no, and like I said, what people don't realize about District 8 is it's so rural. You got Deep Fork, runs through the north side. You got the North Canadian River, so it really is a big landmass that's got two rivers running through it. Of course, it's got Lake Eufaula that takes up a big portion of it. And so, lots of small rural farms, lots of hobby farmers, lots of agriculture. And that's one thing that we probably need to focus on is more economic development.
Right.
Because we are so rural. So, absolutely.
Okay. I have a couple of questions for you regarding policy positions and legislature priorities. One of them is that I read about you that you are tough on trying to get term limits. Is that something that...
Sure, I signed the term limits pledge. Absolutely. As far as that's the U.S., that's congressmen, and so we've already have term limits on a state level, and so I did sign that pledge on the actual Congress level, U.S. level, and if you tried to get the Henryettan off the ground, right, and I came to you 16 years later and said, where are you at on this shell, and you told me you just haven't had enough time to get the Henryettan off the ground, I would probably say you've had 16 years. We probably could have got something accomplished in that time frame, and that's the way I feel about it.
Right.
16 years is a long time to serve, and so you just don't want to leave people there to get complacent or lackadaisical or forget the purpose.
Right. What would you consider to be the top two legislative purposes or priorities for District 8?
Education's big. Protection of farmlands is really big. So I would say probably the top three would be protecting our farms, whether that's water, land, however you look at that. And then, like I said, education's big, but healthcare is also big. And those are probably in no specific order, but those are the three biggest challenges I'd say that we face right here in District 8. And I'd have to sit down and probably work it out to figure out which one was at the top of the list. With everything coming into our district as far as green energy, right, I would say that protecting our farmers, protecting the farmlands right now is probably the number one interest. We've always kind of been in what I'd call a healthcare desert in District 8, so that's absolutely something that we need to focus on. And, of course, education, which most people's not, if you look at the metropolitan areas, right, whether that be Tulsa metropolitan area or Oklahoma City, your Normans, your Yukons, Edmonds, or Jinx, Bixby, Broken Arrows, they face totally different things than we face in District 8. We have a lot of small schools. We have a lot of Class B, Class A schools. And so there's total different sets of problems. And I think our superintendents are doing a great job of keeping most of that out of our small schools. But yet it's still a challenge to keep our schools in operation. When you look at some of the schools in the district, matter of fact, I was coming by one here in Okfuskee County the other day. Mason School just came to mind, and I drove by and I looked at the dates on the buildings and the aging infrastructure. And so absolutely there's challenges, just different challenges than what the city schools are facing.
Yeah, and I've seen some, I've been traveling around a little bit, and I've seen it, some of the schools, like they could really need some uplifting decisions from the state Senate.
Yep.
I'm not going to go into the specifics here,
right,
but that's what I think. There's another aspect of this also that you're probably going to have to deal with, and that is job creation and stimulation of the economy. How do you have anything there that you have
as far as creating new
jobs and other things?
There's a lot of opportunities. You got to be careful how you want you want to produce something that's definitely sustainable, and that's really kind of the word that's been used a lot the last 5 to 10 years is sustainability. The last thing you want to do is bring some kind of business in and it lasts 1 or 2 years and then go out the window. And we've seen that. Man, it hit us hard. Walmart came in and built all the little community Walmarts,
Right.
and lasted 1 year. Matter of fact, I was down in Porham not too long ago and seen the little Family Dollar, and didn't I don't know how many years it lasted, but it's out, and now you got a vacant building. So we've got to be careful on how we bring this in, but it's definitely got to be sustainable.
Isn't that sometimes, I have a feeling that big corporate comes in and they think,
Sure.
they don't calculate the population in that community and also the economic situation for most families in these rural areas.
Yep.
The way I look at it.
Well, and that's what we find most of the time. People either work bigger cities, people in District 8 is either going to Muskogee, Salisaw, even into Glenpool, Jinx, Tulsa area, or even Shawnee, Oklahoma City West. So they're going into these bigger towns. What happens is a lot of times is when they get off work, they're doing all their shopping inside of these bigger towns instead of waiting to get back home. And so most of their business is going outside of the district even. So absolutely, we got to bring community back. We've got to, and I know that's been a big push over the last few years, but it really is a big thing where we need to shop local, put our money back into our own communities, put our money back into District 8.
Yeah, and I, it's a little sidetrack, but we live here in Henryetta, and I see a lot more potential for Henryetta than is actually developed.
Sure.
Where do you think that is reason? Is it? Yeah.
Well, so I've had this question asked several times, and what I think happens, and you get this may be a dagger to my campaign here, but you get city councils that get stale. You get a aging group that kind of want a specific direction for their communities, their city councils, their however you call it. If you want to call it city commission, council, I'm not sure what Henryetta calls theirs, and so they want a specific direction, and sometimes they limit growth for reasons, but they become stagnant and they kind of get behind the 8 ball. And so once it gets too far gone, you start losing businesses, and when you start losing businesses, you start losing the population. And that's another big thing that we face in District 8, which most people don't realize this, is we're a major rental as far as most of our communities are a lot of rental, major rental.
Right.
And so with that brings a whole new set of things that you got to try to work on. So we got to get people, back to buying. We got to get people to building, infill. I'm sure most of these smaller or even larger communities, Okmulgee and Shakota, you follow those, got a lot of dilapidated structures. They've, tore down, had burnouts. Now we got vacant lots. And so we got to get new infill in those infrastructure and have a reason for people to come back home. Have something for them here.
Yeah.
And that's, man, you could go.
But in order for people to come home, there got to be something to come to.
Sure.
Not just a house, because
Right.
a house without income is probably not. So that's where I think the focus needs to be.
Yep.
I'll try to get the industry to come back, and I guess our current president is trying to do some of that.
Sure.
I saw some stuff that has happened over the last few days, and
it's Henryetta itself is located in a great place. When you look at Henryetta, you think of industry. I mean, you think of industrial. You got the railroad track, you got I-40, you got 75.
Yeah, and one of the biggest employers isn't that the glass industry that here should be one of the bigger.
So you would think that it'd be a great location. Like I said, the people's got to want it. Got to have incentives, got to have a reason. And, like I said, when there's a great school to go to, when there's great jobs, people will come.
Right. Yep. Access to health care, pressing issue, and especially here, maybe in many rural communities. How do you think that can be improved?
So absolutely, as I've said already, we're kind of in a healthcare desert in District 8, we do not have a lot of service as far as that goes. You could use incentives there as well. Mostly in the state of Oklahoma, what I've experienced just talking to people as far as primary care, people are seeing, PAs, they're seeing nurse practitioners. So they, we got a struggle there.
Right.
I would like to see probably the opportunity for us to bring in more folks. I mean, it could be done, especially in, like I said, kind of our communities where we bring somebody in, and there's got to be, I'll just say we'll use a pipeline. I'll use that terminology.
Right.
We got to kind of have a pipeline and use people, whether we're bringing out of state employees, and like I said, it's going to be a very strategic thing that's got to be sustainable. We don't want to bring somebody here and offer them something and it only lasts a year and then we lose what we have. So it's got to be very strategic.
Right.
But I would say that would be kind of the game plan, is to try to figure out a way to get more healthcare professionals into our district. Howbeit, and that's without giving too much information on that.
Right.
As far as a strategic plan.
Yeah. Now, District 8, and especially now, obviously for the election here on March 3, it's a pretty crowded field.
Sure.
What would you say sets your campaign apart from others?
Sure. So as far as experience, which not sure if we'll get into that, as far as my background, but the three things outside of my background, one of them I already hit on was the pastoral, 15 years of pastoring, leading, guiding, and being a shepherd over people. That's number one. Number two, I took a no lobbyist pledge, no special interest groups. Right. And so I'm not taking any money. And basically that just tells the people that I am for the people of District 8. Nobody's, determining what I say, what I do, and I want to be a voice for them. So I think that one's probably, really big. I'm not aware of any of the other candidates at this time that has taken that pledge as far as not taking any lobbyist money or special interest groups. And then number three, so pastoring for 15 years, having compassion and a heart to serve. Number two, no lobbyist, special interest group money. And number three, I would say that, I'm not tied. I'm not tied to any sitting legislator, lawmakers. So, all of my dealings with lawmakers have been nothing but a professional setting. Right. And so nobody told me to run. Nobody got in my ear and said, you need to do this. And so I'm not tied to any current lawmakers, which probably sets me apart from the other candidates as well. Yep. That'd be the top three.
Okay. That's a good one. Now there's another issue that I've been concerned about, and that's voters and voters' participation. And I think a lot of times a candidate can be the one that ignites the voters. And
sure.
How do you think you can ignite that?
Sure. We have through our campaign, we have contacted many people, and it really kind of puts things in perspective when you run, because you realize the voter turnout is so low, especially for a special election. We realize that it's even more low. So we've put the word out, trying to inform, and I will give a plug here for a former candidate, Ed Jolly. He was doing a great job of being an informant on the election and trying to get people to participate in voting. It's their civic duty. It's, I don't understand why people wouldn't. And here's what I've kind of told people. I'm like, look, you're paying property taxes, you're paying income taxes, you're paying, purchase, you're paying all these taxes.
Right.
And so if you go down to Walmart and you buy products, you're paying taxes.
Right.
And so I would think that you would definitely want to participate in voting to figure out who's going to be your next,
Yeah, and my saying is, a lot of times you look at a district and they have an election, whether it's the regular election,
sure,
or as in this case, a special election, and they don't participate.
Right.
But then down the road, the voters gets to a point where they're frustrated. And my first question is, did you vote?
Sure.
And I think, we need to encourage people,
Sure.
Especially this election. I think, a lot of people say, well, it's just a Senate seat out of how many, But I am of the opinion, and I'm talking to the audience, I'm of the opinion that no matter who you vote for, you have to vote.
Get out and vote.
You have to vote, otherwise you have no voice.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was probably so. If we look at the presidential election and you look at the voter turnout for this, and you look at the margin, and you look how many votes, I think there was kind of a conception over the last 15 years where people said it don't matter if I vote or not, and I think that was kind of something that we went through, a phase that we went through right here in America, and even in Oklahoma, where people said my vote doesn't really matter anyways. And it does. Like I said, if you don't vote, you don't have a complaint. You don't have a right to gripe because you didn't vote. And then, of course, there's that other, well, if I vote, it's just going to cancel out so-and-so's or whatever. Well, that's your duty. That is your civic duty. That's you got to vote.
Yeah, that's an interesting your civil duty. I have a good friend of mine who is Australian. Did you know that in Australia, if you don't vote, you actually get a fine?
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, I think he said it's about $100. If they don't see that you voted, you get a fine.
Sure.
I haven't had a chance to verify that myself, but he's Australian. He should know.
That would be interesting to see.
It's an interesting scenario there, isn't it? Let's see here. Another thing that is pretty interesting right now, because of what's going on down at the border. How do you see how do you see issues related to the immigration? Where do you stand there?
Oh, absolutely. 110% behind Trump's executive order. Man, it's pretty logical to me. I don't guess I understand why people would allow people undocumented, murderers, criminals, and not want them to be held accountable. I can't fathom that. And my simplest logic on that is I could not imagine opening your door up and saying anybody and everybody that wants come to my house and take what you want and do what you want. I would definitely be trying to vet who's coming in my house. Yeah. And so absolutely 110% behind it, and what I've seen over the last few days in the news, as far as the ICE agents, they're going after criminals. And the news media wants to portray that they're going after this, young mother and this poor guy that's trying to run his, taco stand or whatever. That's not the case. Everything that I've watched, they're hardened criminals. They've got past. They've got warrants. They've got, so absolutely.
Yeah, and the country where they came from don't want to take them back.
I
don't know if you saw that, but they had 2 or 3 C-130s or whatever going to Venezuela, and they refused them to land.
No, and
they would not take them back.
As far as coming in documented and going through the legal process, I think every one of us agree to that. I don't think there's anybody here that would say, we don't, we're all about people coming in legally, doing it the right way.
Right.
And I think that would be any of us here. Let's do it, do it the right way. And if you're a criminal, probably not the right way.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so what's your thought on the balance between economic development and environmental protection? Particularly when it comes to green energy. Where do you stand there?
You got to lean toward the environment side, and this is another thing that's really kind of interesting, that when we think of environmentals, we think of more left-leaning groups, but at the same time, we're bringing all these things. I get it. I get it that for you to play on Google, for you to play on all these things, you got to have data centers and you got to have, and I get it. You talk to anybody, they say we need renewable energy. We've got to have clean energy. We've got to have this. lithium batteries, lithium plants, data mining, all these things. You got to look at the background. What's it doing? And I'll sum it up like this, Shell. I've tried them. No, I really haven't. I was going to say I've tried to eat a battery or a wind turbine blade, and it didn't taste good. That's kind of a joke. But at the same time, we got to realize if we take all of this land out of production as far as farming, and we put it to green energy, where are we going to get our food from? That's a legit question to our.
The globalist has an answer for that.
Absolutely,
we're going to manufacture the beef.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. And there's more. There's agendas behind that, and I don't want to get into a rabbit hole here, but there's definitely some agendas behind all this green energy. Like I said, no matter which one you're talking about, there's agenda behind it. There's creating jobs, but what are we bringing? What kind of baggage do we bring into District 8 when we create these? Are they sustainable? What kind of damage is going to be done? And those are probably the biggest issues that I see with that. So somebody asked me, said, are you against green energy? No, water's green energy. I'm not against water.
Right.
I think water's great. So we got to look at subsidies. We got to look at the reason they're coming. We got to look at the backgrounds. We got to look at the damage that's being done. And here's where I'm at on it. Does the people want it? Does the people in the community, the people in the county, so we could look at any of the 5 counties that District 8 covers, do they want wind turbines? And if they don't want wind turbines, then, that's a question to be asked.
Right. Yeah, and I have a feeling that a lot of, I had that conversation with Ed, that the companies are coming in here. They don't care what happens.
Sure.
When they go bankrupt and leave.
Sure.
And then the homeowner gets stuck with stuff in their yard or whatever. Yep. And I think that's not right.
Absolutely. So my background, I was an environmental specialist. And, of course, when I was program manager over CDBG, every monies that we spent, we had to do environmentals. So here's where I'm going with this. So every federal dollar we spent, we had to do environmentals on those projects.
Right.
And when I was at the tribe, I was at the tribe for 2 years, and I was an environmental specialist. Again, all the money that we spent, you had to do environmentals. And so you look at that and you go, wait, why are these getting a pass? Why is most of this stuff flying under the radar? As far as I know, there hasn't been any environmental impact reviews done in depth. Like I said, a lot of this stuff, it's almost kind of like we're giving them a pass, right. and I don't understand that.
Yeah. So that's something you want to take a stab at if you're elected?
Sure. And there's a lot of great legislation coming down the pike this year. As far as on the wind turbines, especially, there's a couple of bills being ran as far as setbacks and all that. And 100%, you got to look at it and say, again, is this what the people of, we'll talk specifically about McIntosh County, but the reality is it's happening in Hughes County. It's coming to Okfuskee County. It's coming to Okmulgee County. We look at Muskogee County, and they've got their own set of issues coming in there. And so, absolutely, I'd be 100% for standing up for the people.
Okay. Got a couple of more questions for you. One is the younger generation in this country and pretty much any country. How do you think you could get them involved in the political process?
Wow, that's
young people.
That's a tough one there.
Yeah.
So I'll just go back to my childhood. And really, when we took social studies and all that, it was pretty young age. And so by the time you get to senior in high school, you done learned all that 5-6 years ago. You might have took a civics class freshman year or so. And so it's almost kind of like everybody puts it on the back burner. Here's the number one thing that I'd say. As far as colleges go, they're pushing an agenda that's not good for our country. Our big colleges are pushing, they got a big push out against everything that we was taught about the Constitution, about the history of the United States of America. And so absolutely, we've got to do our part of educating them. And just to be honest with you, we got to force them, our colleges, to stop it. I don't know how you go about that, but if they're state funded, then absolutely I think we ought to have a right into what they're trying to push.
Withhold some funding to them.
Sure.
This for sure has been a big change since you and I were in college, and me even so. At that time it was God, and listen to your mom and dad, and go to school, and you learned, and you had professors and teachers that actually know what they were teaching. And the stupidity about teaching boys are girls and girls are boys, doesn't run with me.
Yeah, I'll never forget. So I was taking some online courses at Rose State, and it was a health class of all things, but they made us do a survey, and in this, it was a political survey that we had to do, and it gave us a grade at the end of it that told us where we was as far as our what we were, and mine was a staunch conservative.
Right.
And the questions on there was things like, are you pro-military? It was just general questions like that. Well, then we had to have a class discussion about it.
Right.
And you're looking at it and you're going, what does this got to do with health?
Right.
What does this got to do with health? And so, like I said, absolutely, there needs to be more education. And like I said, my experience was I got that social studies at such a young age that it didn't really sink in the importance, freedom of speech and all that, the Second Amendment, Third, Fourth. It didn't set in until really your adulthood.
Right.
So we learned all that at such a young age, probably 6th grade, 4th, 5th grade. So definitely need more education.
Right. Okay. One more question, and then we'll close this out. If you are elected, what would you see, or what legacy would you like to leave?
Oh man, as far as a legacy, I just want to be a voice for the people. And I know that probably sounds like a generic answer, but as far as a legacy, I'm not looking to make a great name. I'm looking to be there to hear the people out, whatever whatever their problems, whatever their concerns are. So I don't know about a legacy. If I could go and spend 8 years, so this is going to be a 2-year stint. Right. I'm not. I'm just there for the people. And I know that may sound a little generic, but that's the God's honest truth. As far as legacy, you go in and you do a great job. You and this is kind of what I've told people. I said you hold the Bible in one hand, the Constitution in the other hand, and if it passes both of those, you still got to look at District 8 and say, is this beneficial? Is this good for them? Right. And if it's not good for them, then it don't meet all three of those requirements.
Right.
And so, as far as a legacy, I guess it would be common sense and do what's right for the people.
Good answer.
Keep your head on a swivel.
Good answer, because that's something that I think is a lot of lack, and the word is common sense.
Transparency with common sense will take you a long ways today. And I'll say this, and I know we'll probably. So there's so much attention being brought to our current lawmakers. People's paying a lot more attention now than they were 6 years ago, 5 years ago, even 4 years ago. There's a lot more rumblings about it out there. So people's taking notice. They're actually looking to see how their representative, their senators voting. They're looking to see, so with all the social media and all the ways to watch and view and to comment, to network, absolutely people's taking notice.
Right. Yeah, no, I know, and it's crazy. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and we can't go into all of it here, but I came to the United States in 1987. I have seen a drastic change since 1987. And what has been under attack, in my view, and I don't know if you share that with me, but what has been under attack is the lower court systems, where judges are pretty much just bought up by big money.
Yeah.
And, I don't shame to name the name either. George Soros is one of them.
100%.
And we got to do something about that.
Yep.
and I think it starts in the states.
Yeah.
And it needs to be worked all the way up into the federal government. Or start there and come down this way. But
That's
if you could start from both ends and push it out, it would be great.
Yeah, you got to fight it one state at a time, one election at a time.
Yeah.
And then from states, you go on to the bigger picture.
All right. It was really nice to have you here today.
Great to be here.
Just so we people understands, Bryan has been endorsed by Ed Jolly. Do you want
That is correct.
Mention that?
Yeah, so I'll try to be brief on it. Very, very interesting how this all come about. So Ed actually received a flyer of mine and called me after he received the flyer and said, "Man, I'd like to meet you." And I thought to myself, I was like, why does he want to meet me? I was thinking, man, we're limited for time. We've got to try to make as many contacts as we can. And so I told Ed, I said, yeah, I'll meet you. So Ed, great guy. So kind of a funny story. And this is kind of my piece that I show everybody when I talk about Ed Jolly. So this is my Ed Jolly gift.
Right.
The first time I'd ever met Ed, when we sat down and talked early on, way before we filed. So we met over coffee and we kind of talked about policies, and Ed told me, he said, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm running and this is what I felt like God had me to do at this point. And we talked and kind of just, said, all right. And Ed actually asked me, he said, I don't get why God would ask two of us to run. And I would probably venture to say that I've even kind of heard some of the other candidates talk about running. And I told Ed, I said, God opened the door for us to run. I said, but God never showed me who was going to win. I said, so therefore I'm going to go through the open door and run. And so fast forward, filing was in January. Most of us filed on that Tuesday. There was a rally at the Capitol on that Tuesday, so most of us went and filed that day, stayed for the rally. And then fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, we was at Okmulgee at a county GOP meeting, and Ed done his introduction there. And the next day, Ed called me and said that he needed to talk. And so he talked about getting out of the race. And I just told him, I said, why? He said, I just kind of feel like that's what I need to do. And I told him, I said, Ed, I sure don't want you to feel any pressure from me or any other candidate because, again, we all think we're the best candidate.
Right.
I mean, if you felt like you need to run. And so I told him, I said, Ed, I don't want to put any pressure on you because, if this is what you feel you need to do. And so, and again, me and Ed did not know each other previous to this, him getting a flyer in the mail.
Wow.
Now we have some similarities in background as far as farm and as far as Gordon Cooper Technology Center. I sit on the board there, and it's Ed's current employer. And so there is a little similarities there, both from Okfuskee County. And so when Ed called me that day, he said, I'm pulling out of the race. And he said, I'd like to endorse you. And man, I'm telling you, I was very, very humbled. It was very, very unexpected. I told him, Ed, you're a good man. And he told me, don't say that. I said, man, I'm just, so appreciative that you would endorse this after. And so his name's going to be on the ballot. And I told him this. I said, Ed, you're going to get some votes. Some people will go in there and vote for Ed Jolly just for grins and giggles.
Right.
So he probably will get some votes out of that. But yes, Ed did endorse us. He put a public statement out on social media, and we've shared that post on our own social media site. And Ed's a genuine guy, stand-up guy.
Right. I got that meeting him a few times, and I got that from him.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, it's I think it's been a challenge for all of us.
Right.
It's been something new to us, first time we've ever ran in this capacity.
Right.
So
it was nice meeting you.
Yes, sir.
And having you in the seat.
Yes, sir.
So get out and vote. Don't vote for Ed Jolly.
March 4th.
Yeah.